December 30th meeting of the Charter Commission. If we could stand and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let the record show Keith has a scheduled absence. Carrie was an emergency absence. Denise, I am assuming, is on her way. And Sandy had to step out for a quick errand and should be back shortly. Is anybody here besides Shane taping this meeting? Okay. Do we have any members from the public who would like to speak at this time? All right. First up this evening, we have a representative, I'm hoping that's you, from the Board of Health. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. If you don't mind, yeah, why don't you just come up and sit here at this table real quick, since that's where the microphone is.
Right here?
That'd be great,
Oh, good.
thank you. Hi, I'm Laura Parker, by the way.
Hi, Diane Battistello.
Very
Nice to meet you.
Diane. Thank you for coming. You're representing the Board of Health this evening?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We appreciate it. We understand we had to reschedule you before, so we do appreciate your
Thank you. Well, it's
making
good to be here.
the time and scheduling. Okay, so Diane is representing the Board of Health. They are a 3-member board, and they are appointed by the Board of Selectmen. And Diane, if you don't mind, if you could just do a quick introduction, tell me how long you've been on the board, and the makeup of the board, if there's any specific backgrounds or requirements for sitting on the Board of Health.
I've been on the board since 2010. Bob Medeiros has been on the board probably since that time or before. And then we have another member, Bill. Sorry, his last name's escaping me right now.
Abard, it looks like, or Hebard?
Right.
Yep.
So we're 3 members that the selectmen appoint. I have the health seat, Bob has the civilian seat, and the other seat is engineering seat. For Bill has
That's
the
Bob Medeiros.
Yeah,
Okay,
Bill has the engineering seat.
okay. And that's a requirement to sit on the,
Yes, that's how the selectmen had set it up.
okay. All right. And if you don't mind, if you can give me a brief explanation of the responsibility of the board and how it relates with staff.
Sure. Well, the paid staff handles anything that needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. And we basically will come in and make policy changes. For instance, we just work with the smoking regulations. So the state issues a basic regulation, and if we determine that we want the regulation to be a little more stringent, then we have the ability to do that. We cannot make it more lax, but we can make it more stringent. So the smoking was the big issue that we just dealt with.
How often does the board meet?
We meet once a month.
Okay.
And I brought you copies of that I pulled off the internet.
That would be great.
Off of the local boards of health in Massachusetts. It's a guide book. So in the office, they do record keeping and reports. They are responsible for recording sanitary conditions and complaints, and they're responsible for restaurant cleanliness, checks on that. In the summertime, swimming pools. There's a lot more than that, but those are just some of the things. The nurse, we have a wonderful nurse, Donna Palmer, and she.
We met with her.
Yes, you met with her.
Yes.
She's wonderful. She does a lot of clinics and goes to people's houses to do vaccinations. So we might also be involved in hazardous waste or solid waste, housing complaints, food inspections, nuisances, septic and garbage. Title V is a very big thing that the board deals with. Mostly Chris deals with that in the office. When somebody's building a new house or when somebody's selling a house, the septic system has to be, if they're selling it, it has to be checked to make sure that it's up to date. And if they're building a new one, it has to be inspected to make sure that it's up to date.
Okay.
We're also responsible for checking the milk licenses, making sure that the products on the shelf at CVS, all the food products, CVS and Walgreens, that they're not expired on the shelf. That's one of the things that they do in the office. We're also responsible for pools and beaches, camps, motels, mobile parks. We could get involved with pesticides and smoking, I already mentioned. Nuisances. So I have a little list of.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll make I'll put this on Dropbox for everybody. Okay. All right, and so you meet on a monthly basis. You basically affect policy.
Right. Chris will make up an agenda for the meetings once a month, and a lot of the things are routine. We don't even have to get involved with them, but if he has a complaint, he talks with us about the complaints, and just so we know what's going on in town in case a resident happens to call.
Okay. What are your thoughts on how members are chosen for your board? So currently they are appointed. Do you think that is
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Works good. You've got a great hired staff. Everybody works really well together, and they're really hard workers.
And does the state determine the number of people that sit on the Board of Health, or is it town-specific?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the number of members on the board?
I think it's great.
Is it sufficient?
I think 3 is perfect.
Okay. And you've already told us a little bit about working with department staff, and that's a good working relationship. And so, main staff is Christian's Honor Health Agent. He is appointed by town manager. Are you comfortable with that provision? Would you prefer the board to have some either say or vote into who is hired for that position?
I think that would be nice. We did meet with all of the candidates before Chris was hired.
Okay.
And we were able to give our input into the selection. And we had selected Chris as well as the town manager, so there was no conflict there. Everything went very smoothly.
What are your thoughts on the level of guidance and/or support that you receive from the town itself?
The Board of Health basically gets their orders from the state. So we operate a little bit differently than other departments in the town.
Okay.
So when there's something going on that could be a health crisis, we will get notified from the state that we should look into this.
Okay. Do you have access to everything you need? And everything could be information, technology, people that you need to function properly as a board?
I think we do. I don't work in the office, so I'm not sure what they would say, but they seem to be, we get grants also. The Board of Health gets grants from the state, so I know that their technology is pretty updated.
Okay. Who is the grant writer? Are you aware?
I'm not. I think it just comes from the state. I
Okay.
think they get, they might get federal money and then they divvy it out.
Got it.
I don't think we've ever had to write a grant for anything.
Okay. You live in Norton?
I do.
Okay. Have you ever worked with or come across any towns where the Board of Health is structured differently that you think we may want to consider?
I was on the Board of Health in North Attleboro
Okay.
for several years, and they were elected.
Okay.
It was, there was a lot of interest in North Attleboro, but North Attleboro is much bigger than Norton.
Yep. And you ran for, you pulled
Right.
papers to run for that seat?
Right.
Okay.
3 elections, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was,
Having done it, having been both appointed and elected, do you think there's one that's better than the other for Board of Health specifically?
I think North Attleboro got a little more publicity than Norton does. I know the Sun Chronicle doesn't really come out, so a lot of the issues we were dealing with generated a lot of controversy. Board of Health generally gets involved with controversial issues. So Norton's a very quiet town. There hasn't really been, other than the smoking regulation, we had a lot of people at our meeting that one time. I think it's working out fine the way it is now. Elections were fun, but they're costly, you know, to people, and then, you know, they take a lot of time.
Okay. Thinking about what you do as a board and thinking about how the people on that board get appointed or sat in that board, do you have a opinion over which was more ideal or appropriate for a Board of Health?
I like being appointed, actually.
Okay.
It was less stressful for me. And I don't know that there's a lot of people that are waiting to get on the Board of Health in Norton, you know. I think it just depends on the feel of the town.
Okay.
You know, Norton's kind of a small, sleepy, still I think it's a sleepy town compared to North Attleboro's grown so much in size that they were dealing with a lot of different issues than we're dealing with. So I think appointed works fine at the size that the town is now.
Where we are here.
Right.
We appreciate that. It's rare we have somebody who has experience with both, so I was interested in getting your specific
Well,
opinion.
the difference with an appointed board is that, or an elected board, is that the staff workers report to the board, not to the town manager. So we had authority over the people in the office.
Okay.
Then they had a union come in, like, at the end of my time there, and that kind of changed everything around, so I don't really know how that works now with the union. But it used to be that the staff reported to the board.
Okay.
So that created a lot of controversy in town, too.
Okay. Thinking about how our town government operates, are there any things that you've thought about or considered that you think we may want to start doing or stop doing or keep doing?
I'm kind of a traditionalist, so I like to keep things, town hall, town meeting, and I kind of like to keep things going the way they are. I know you need to expand and change things and stay with the times, but
Yep, I really appreciate your opinion on that. Was there anything, does anybody have any questions for Diane? Was there anything that we didn't ask you about that you'd like to discuss with us specifically?
no.
Okay.
No, so the information that I gave you is there, and
Thank you.
if you have any questions, just email me, and I'll get right back to you with an answer.
Very much appreciate it. And if nobody has any other questions? Okay, I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Doing wonderful.
Okay.
see
So
it.
Sandy's on her way back. All right,
Like a company.
so. Let's take our time and review the prior minutes, and hopefully Sandy will be back by that point.
Do you have an extra copy by any
I
chance?
do, we left a set over here for you.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It looked like someone was sitting there, so I didn't.
No, there's an inbox that got left.
Gotcha.
There you go. All right, so up for review are the minutes of our last meeting, which was Monday, December 16th.
So just a point of clarification for me,
Sure.
because I know I missed half of the meeting because I had to leave early. So should I abstain because I can't really say what happened the second half?
It depends, did you watch it on video?
I did not.
Okay, then I would probably abstain.
Okay.
If there are no questions, I will accept a motion to accept the meeting minutes of Monday, December 16th, 2019.
So moved.
Dave Feeney. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dave first. Sorry, I gotta write this down for Sandy. Kevin, second. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, what time do we have? 7:18. I am somewhat inclined to stall a bit. What can we talk about?
So we have the historical district for the next meeting,
We do.
and then that's pretty much it for the,
That should be the last
Last one.
of all of our interviews with folks. And just as a reminder, your campaign finance year-end paperwork is due, I think, by the 20th of January, if I'm not mistaken.
you can do it online through email too.
Yes.
Easy.
I know.
Did everybody get the reminder that I sent around from Lucia?
Put zeros in boxes.
Yeah.
All right.
I did it in person, actually, you can just email it to it too.
Okay.
I left mine in the bill box outside, so I'm like, I can't get there during the office
Lori-
hours, so
Lori-
you drop it in there. She got it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay,
I emailed her, I said,
good.
Did you get it? She's like, yes.
Fill it out. Sign it.
Just taking a quick poll, is everybody planning on being here at the next meeting, January 13th? I think it's going to be critical for a few votes.
That's the week before Martin Luther King week, right?
Correct.
Then yes.
Okay,
I'm good.
all right. Yeah, I think it was on the
far as I know.
list of good days.
Yeah, we scheduled out beyond that.
Yeah, we're scheduled all the way through June,
Oh.
for all intents and purposes. It's every other, I think there may be one holiday we've got to work around. I do have a note in my calendar in advance of it coming up. I forget which one it is. It's probably Memorial Day.
Right.
Yeah, we have the 13th and the 27th of
27th.
January. And then
Actually, I didn't have it in my calendar. I
24th.
will be there, but I will have probably the same, gonna pick up my daughter and come back kind of situation.
All right, we'll try and hold any key discussions or votes from that. You may miss a little bit, but
I gotta check this. There might be another mom I can ask to give her a ride. I gotta check the schedule.
she's back.
Some of the other dance moms.
All right, I stalled just enough.
And it just started downpouring too.
It did.
Wow, a downpour in Norton.
Yeah.
All right, do we need to have any discussion with regards to the Board of Health? Okay. Second. And this. All right, we're good on the Board of Health meeting. No further discussion there. Okay. Next on the agenda is discussion of recommendations, including, we'd put in here potential votes, but given the number of people who are not here, I don't see us voting specifically. What I would like to do is just a informal straw poll. I have the feedback from the two people, from Keith and from Carrie, who are not here. But what I'd like to do is just go around and get everybody's kind of personal recommendation for where they see us going for the legislative and executive branch. With regards to some of the particulars regarding, let's say, at-large versus precincts, I think we'll hold that until the next meeting. If you've given any consideration to the number of members of the legislative body that you're considering and the length of the term, feel free to offer those up. But I think at that point, that should probably suffice for the discussion for tonight, and I'll get into a little bit of, I've got some handouts for things that we're going to have to consider further. I'm looking for feedback as to whether there's things that are missing within there. And then I've got a couple of handouts that may be helpful when it comes to making decisions further down the road with regards to citizen participation and, what was the other one? Elected versus appointed. I found a couple of good guidelines that I think will be helpful for us. So, given that, is there anybody who would like to go first with regards to what they feel is their recommendation for the legislative and executive branch going forward?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I was gonna not answer the question.
Oh, okay.
But I have thoughts, but they're not actually an answer to the question, but if you wanna jump in.
Well, I haven't thought as deep as some of those things that you're talking about in
Yep.
terms of numbers and.
Yes,
and
that's fine.
Things like that. For me personally, at this point, sitting here, I feel like, and I like open town meeting, I do, but I feel like it's not working. And my concern in keeping and tweaking some things with the open town meeting is that some things that we want to change won't get changed. That would be my biggest concern. So I'm leaning towards moving away from open town meeting and to a town council, is my thought process. And for me personally, I feel like I can almost pinpoint when I changed my mind is when we had that meeting with the town council and the two representatives. I thought that was a very informative meeting. I liked the things that they said. And that was kind of when I started leaning towards where I am now.
Did you give any consideration to the executive branch? I'm assuming are you thinking town manager versus mayor?
Absolutely.
Okay, and
And I shouldn't say absolutely, that is my opinion. I don't think that, even size-wise, is not even so important, but I just don't think, I don't think we need a mayor. I think if we have a mayor, we're still tied to a town manager anyway.
and would you view the town manager as weak or strong?
I think we need a strong town manager,
Okay.
is my opinion.
I'm still on Mayor Norton, Peter G. Wiggin.
Yes, you are, Peter.
But other than that, I haven't thought into all those little minor
Nuances.
details. Correct, yeah.
Okay.
It's just
Anything
where-
else you wanted to offer up as rationale, or
No, I don't think so.
just want to make sure everybody feels like they've been heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody who'd like to go next? I have a couple I can read if somebody wants me to jump in with those first.
I can jump in.
Okay.
So, as I was thinking about this, I understand why we're doing the straw poll and everything, but it almost feels a little premature, just based, the way my brain tends to work. I'm an analytical person, so I want to I want to make sure we understand what the problem is, right? So before we say, here's what I think the solution is, I'd like to see us work towards ideally some consensus on, okay, if it's not town meeting, the challenges that we're having with it are blank, right? And then that, in order to solve those challenges that we've all agreed on, we think that the best solution is blank, right? To me, the challenges that I see most broadly, I think I'm in agreement with what I think I heard Janie say. And when we talk about the size, it comes down really to two main words for me. It's participation and representation. And I think those two themes go through so much of what we heard over the past several months. Participation in terms of if there's not something tax or school on the agenda for a town meeting, there's 40 to 50 people in the room, right? And when we think about representation, we talked about packing the room a lot of times and things like that. So if there's something, it's a zoning issue that's going to affect a certain area, or it's a senior, something for the senior community, or again for the schools, or whatever it might be, the way that it's structured doesn't seem to allow for broad representation on a consistent basis, right? It seems to be easy to game the system in certain ways by being able to get the right people available on the right 3-hour window twice a year to be able to push through whatever it is that's pushed through. So I guess I'd hold back from offering what I think the right quote-unquote move is from there, because I'd be very interested to hear what the collective view is, either on the problems with the current state or the desired ideal state, whatever that might be, and then we can fit in whatever kind of fits into that bucket. But that might just be because I've been in engineering and consulting for a long time, and that's how they teach us to think.
Okay.
Can I speak on that?
Yes, please.
So I kind of think the same way, I think, as you do, in terms of what are the issues?
Yeah.
And I think I said this last week, can we resolve those within the town meeting?
Yeah.
If not, what's the better option? So I see the issues as lack of efficiency, special interest groups, which you kind of referred to, and accountability. And Kevin, you brought that up, like one of the first meetings, how town meeting makes a decision, that's it, we walk away. One night, that decision, all those decisions are made, and there's no recourse if it doesn't work out, if it's ends up being a bad decision. So that accountability piece is kind of, huge in terms of then leading to which of the others gives you more accountability. To me, RTM, in an ideal world, if you could actually fill those spots and even have contested races in those spots, then you might be able to get that. I have a lot of concern about that, right? That the numbers that you need for RTM just kind of blow my mind. I don't know if we were talking about 100, 200. Where are you going to find the number of people to volunteer? We heard the Cultural Council has 20-something openings, so this is not a town that's stepping up to even on the smaller scale volunteer. So I don't know that Norton that would work for. In terms of special interest groups, we also heard that representative town meeting can have issues with that, right? That you can stack that election and just go in, because it's really not a huge time commitment, right? A couple meetings you have to go to. But I think the biggest one that that neither town meeting or representative town meeting address is the efficiency. To have a town run where all of your decisions are made twice a year, it just seems absurd to me. I can't even imagine, like tonight, let's make 26 decisions. Let's vote on 26 different things.
Yeah.
Even if we've been sitting here for however many months, and we've certainly heard a lot of information, and we feel like well educated at this point. I still couldn't make 26 decisions in one night.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's an impossible task. And that when we heard Renee last week speak about the time crunch, right? We heard a lot of people, Oren as well, the time crunch. And we start in January, starting to think about these articles. This is not like the week before we're saying, oh, let's put these articles on. We have deadlines that have been way backed up, right? The warrant articles are due on a certain date. Even with all those deadlines and all of those, as early as we're starting, it's not enough time, because there's too much to try to accomplish on that one evening. I just imagine if all we had to focus in on was a budget, like from, May or April, whatever was our budget month. And that's all we could, we just need to focus on that for a couple months. And then we can worry about whether we want to zone something industrial, or whether we want to add a bylaw, or any of those pieces, because I don't know how you get all of that. I think that's where the problem lies in terms of information not getting out, because how do you get all that information out for a town meeting? In terms of everyone feeling a time crunch, all these different boards having to review it before that meeting, and how their schedules all line up, town council having to review all this before the meeting. So I feel like all of that, this is what keeps leading me to town council. That the fact that they can meet weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, or, every other week, whatever it is, make decisions ongoing, is to me just so much more efficient. And to me, that was a big reason why we started this group, right? It was working on making our government more efficient. And so for me, it's town council.
Yeah, and I would echo all of that. I mean, I think that we kind of know what the issues that we've seen are, right? We know that the numbers are very low for town meeting, which presents the stacking the meeting issue, or just not really representing the opinion of the whole town when you've only got, like 1% showing up to the meetings. And also the efficiency piece is significant as well. I think that we could streamline a lot in the current form of government that we have. And so I think that we need to go with something that's going to kind of solve those big issues. And I think it actually solves one of the ongoing things we've heard back and forth too, is who appoints the FinCom, right? Why does moderator appoint it? Why shouldn't it be multiple teams? And I think, if I'm understanding correctly, town council eliminates the need for moderator, so problem solved there too.
New problem created.
Yes. Well, now the decision is to whether, we actually would wind up recommending keeping some form of FinCom or advisory.
Correct.
Committee.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of consistent questions that we've heard,
Yep.
I think, throughout the thing. And I think the town council seems to solve all those big, huge issues that we've heard consistently throughout this whole thing.
Yep. I think, I'm going to jump in. In line with not only efficiency, I think effectiveness is important, and those, I believe, are two very different things. And I don't think town meeting form of government is either efficient or effective. By meeting only twice a year, decisions get made too slowly, opportunities are missed. We need to have a legislative body, in my opinion, that can vote on issues more than twice a year. I really feel that town meeting in any form is almost an impediment to getting anything done. I also, piggybacking on Sandy's comments, I think it's near impossible for an average citizen to attend or watch all of the relevant meetings and read all of the documentation, if it's even available, in order to make a truly educated decision at town meeting, even if they wanted to. They may not even have the time to attend town meeting itself, and the topics.
I attend town meeting.
Yes.
And the topics that we're asking citizens to consider and vote on are complicated. Things that are not well-suited for large discussions to be held in a very short period of time. I feel it's a cumbersome and daunting task, and I feel that it actually may deter more people than it attracts. So one of the things I'm also struggling with is the fact that town meeting, open or otherwise, when you think about it, is not really a true legislature, because it does not, at least the majority of the time, originate law. Conversely, the Board of Selectmen really aren't true executives, because their authority is fairly limited. So from there, that's where I struggle, or I'm finding it hard to determine where the accountability lies in our current form of government and where it should lie. So my opinion is that town meeting form of government in either form doesn't really meet the needs of the town in this day and age. And my recommendation would also be town council.
I'll jump in. I agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, it's, to me, personally, I like town meeting. I like the idea of it. I like the idea that we can come out, you know, and fill a gymnasium if that was the case, and we were getting a fair representation of the voters in town. I mean, if we were getting 2,000-3,000 people showing up to this, you know, town meeting, where we would put them, I don't know. But if we were getting that, it would be a different story. We wouldn't probably be in the situation we're in. We're not getting that. We're getting 120, 130 people to show up. So I think of it a little bit more simple. I think of it that we were here, we were voted in, this was voted in, and we were voted in for a reason, to look at how do we fix it, because people were upset with the way it was going. That's how I looked at it. I know it may be a simple thing, and a lot of people are just saying, well, at least look at it and see where you come. But I look at it as there's three ways that we can go. We can keep what we have. We can go to an RTM, which to me, I think is just more of the same. I think we're gonna ask for a large participation, and we may get it at first, but in a few short years, we're gonna be in the same boat we're in right now. And we're gonna be wondering why we didn't go and streamline it. I think it happened in North Attleboro. They did the exact same thing. They went to an RTM, and now they're at the town council. I know we're not North Attleboro, but I just see us, if we push for the RTM because it's the in-between of what we have and the town council, I think we're gonna be redoing this, whether it be in 5 years or 10 years, or even 20 years, and people are gonna be saying the same thing. So I think RTM is more of the same. It doesn't allow us to streamline anything. It allows us still to, you know, people to be put on the representative town meeting to, you know, get certain things voted in and get certain things passed, and you still only have whatever the number is that you have representing the town meeting. I think we need efficiency. We need accountability. I think those are the things we keep hearing over and over again. I didn't think some of them are disguised in other things. I think they're disguised in water problems. I think they're disguised in how technology's figured out. I think it's disguised in if you want a DPW. I think all those things come back to an accountability. Who is responsible for this? And I believe the town council, while it's not perfect, nothing is gonna be perfect. If it was perfect, everybody would be doing it. And we wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't be having town policy, we wouldn't be having discussions like this. But I think town council is the only way that it allows, with a very strong town manager, it allows at least some accountability and to know where and who is responsible for what. So, in my opinion, that when things start going wrong, we're not doing this and who's responsible and who's to blame, like some of what's going on right now. I think you have a strong town manager, it works down, you have accountability, and then you task the groups and you give people that are on elected boards or on appointed boards the ability to do what they were put in there to do. They're not responding back or going back and asking, well, this is the situation that we fell into. Here's all the stuff we have, and then allowing a board that has no idea what they went through for you know, countless meetings to make a decision on it. And I think, like, that's what I keep hearing over and over again. And I think some of that, while it's not gonna be totally eliminated, having a board that votes, that meets regularly, and that votes on things as they come up throughout the year, doesn't allow us to go and force people to sit in front of 130 or 180 or 200 people and decide on what's gonna happen for the next how many months or how many years, you know, and ask everyone to do that. I think it actually is impossible for somebody to watch as many meetings as we hold here and then go and make an educated decision. And I think giving it to the town council where you have, and again, the numbers and stuff like that, I haven't really thought about that either. I haven't thought whether it be a 7 or 9. That to me is for later. But I think to give those people that are elected, that are going to make those decisions, the power to make the decisions throughout the year, and the town manager to guide us. And the one thing I think it also does that we heard over and over again here is everybody keeps saying, master plan, master plan, master plan. What are we gonna do 5 years? What are we gonna do 10 years? I think town meeting is doing the exact opposite to that, because we can't have a 5-year plan, because we don't know what's gonna happen at spring town meeting. We don't know what's gonna happen. After we come up with a plan in May, we turn around and that can go totally the opposite way in October. So I think it totally hinders being able to have a master plan. Where I think if you have a town council and you have a strong town manager and you have that guy on top saying, look, this is where we're looking for the town, this is where we're looking for a 5-year plan, this is where we're looking for a 10-year plan, we can see it and we can kind of plan for it. I think it allows us to I'm not saying right away, but easily introduce things like a DPW. I think it's going to be extremely difficult to do those type of things and put people under one thing with keeping the open town meeting. I think the way to do that more efficiently is when you go to town council. I think things like the DPW and stuff like that will fall into place the way they are. I'm not saying right away, but maybe down the road. So I'm by far, personally, for the town council I don't think there's any other way that Norton moves forward unless we go to this.
I guess I'll go next. And I think I pretty much echo a lot of what people are saying here, but so when I was thinking about this initially, I was thinking about myself in town for the last 25 years and my experiences in town. And so when I moved into town here, I think like most people, I bought a house, and I was interested in the school systems, and I was interested in meeting my neighbors and all kinds of things, and town government was kind of secondary. And then I went to a couple of town meetings, and I said to my wife, I said, I'm not coming back, because it's painful. I have a headache, and I can't believe what I just experienced. And quite frankly, for 15 years, I never went back, unless it was something really, really important to me, and me only. And or important to the town, but it was a key issue, and that's the only reason I went back. And I think in this town, quite frankly, I think that's the majority of people in town. They didn't move to Norton to be engaged in government. They came to Norton for what it is, a nice, quiet little town. And, and then when people do get involved, they kind of bump up against town meeting and the frustrations that bring. And so even the people who want to be engaged just struggle with that. And it's very inefficient. It's not, as we all mentioned, it doesn't represent the town. You have 150 people showing up for a meeting that representing 20,000 people. Lack of accountability. I mean, those are all real issues with an open town meeting, in my opinion. I guess when I initially ran for this commission, I guess in the back of my head, I was somewhat thinking of, what's the next step, and maybe representative town meeting just intuitively made a little bit of sense to me. But after running and realizing really a lack of political engagement by most people in this town. You're standing at CVS and you mention you're running for this commission and they don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm not criticizing anybody for that, but it's just the reality of how this town operates, and that's fine. I think that's the reality. So this type of town, if we were Dedham or outside of Boston, I can see maybe a representative town meeting working. More of a political atmosphere. You walk out of your house and you know your neighbors closer, and you can walk up the street and go to the coffee shop and that kind of thing. I don't think you just don't have that in Norton here. So after thinking about representative town meeting, I think we'd be right back to where we are right now. And as Kevin mentioned, in 5-10 years, I think it just doesn't work. I can't see it working. We just don't have that type of environment here in town. So like everyone else, we pretty much lead you to town council, form of government. I think something that's really lacking in the current form of government, probably more importantly than anything perhaps, is just, in my opinion, lack of accountability. And who's responsible for what? Who's responsible for the budget? Who sets the budget? Who sets the agenda for the budget? Quite frankly, I don't think you can get a straight answer to those questions in this town. And that's a problem. That really is. And I see if we structure town council form of government correctly, I think it addresses a lot of those problems. And I think it'd be much more accountable. And, I made some notes about what I thought about finance committee and structuring it, and I won't get into it today, but I do think there's a lot of good ways of structuring it that are gonna make a lot more sense and a lot more efficient and a lot more, at the end of the day, just improving accountability right down the line. I'm very much in favor of a strong town manager, however, also. And I guess that's it. I had all kind of comments about other things about the political council, but I won't jump way ahead and just give you my opinion. But but overall, I just feel that the town council form of government is more efficient, easier to understand as to how it operates, and much overall better aligned with the expectations of the citizens of this town. And that's pretty much it, where I stand.
Carrie was very nice, and I'll read her statement into the record. She had quite a bit to say. Keith had an opinion and less rationale, but I'll read his opinion as well. So let's see. So no email will substitute for the ability to expand on or discuss ideas, but in the interest of adding to this discussion, which hopefully will continue in the coming weeks, I've been giving a lot of thought to what we've heard during our information gathering phase. While most of what we've heard has more to do with revenues and resource needs than form of government, there's been plenty of information we can use to make our recommendations. Based on the evidence thus far, it seems to me that our current form of government, open town meeting, is no longer serving our citizens in a fair and efficient manner. Modern schedules and responsibilities do not lend themselves to a fully informed town meeting member. Moreover, they detract from regular attendance. Additionally, decisions are hampered and delayed when they have to be held for a vote at a town meeting or special town meeting. Simply put, I have come to believe Norton needs a more modern government that reflects the needs of its growing population. We've briefly discussed two others of interest, representative town meeting and town council. Representative town meeting would allow people to self-reflect, parenthetical to run for election, and hopefully remain informed about the issues. However, we have heard of numerous issues recruiting volunteers in town, and RTM does not help provide more timely responses to town departments requiring legislative approval on issues. They still have to wait for town meeting or special town meeting to be scheduled. I'm therefore leaning in support of town council form of government with a strong town manager. Such a legislative body could nimbly respond to the needs of the town and be accountable to its citizens. A strong town manager ensures efficient responses in the day-to-day operation of the town. Happy to discuss in more detail. Apologize for the absence. Hopefully on the mend soon. And Keith, like I said, was short on rationale, but his recommendation was to remove the Board of Selectmen and replace with a town council. And based on the additional comments, is in favor of a town manager versus a mayor form of town council. So,
So I get real nervous when everybody's in lockstep agreement like we seem to be.
This is probably the only one.
But I always ask
I'm
this question.
surprised.
I always ask this question, and it's, if there was a really smart person in the room who disagreed with this, what would that person say? Right, that's the like, is it?
So you're saying we're not really smart people?
No, I'm saying if there was another smart person here who disagreed with the perspectives that we shared that was consistent, what would that person's argument be?
Well, I think we've heard those arguments, right?
Yeah,
People
Mary
that are in
Steele
favor
made
of town
some
meeting.
arguments for staying with open town meeting, or staying with town meeting form of government.
Because they want to have a voice.
Right, I think people feel that with the open town meeting, they have a voice,
Yeah.
and they can go, even if they don't want to speak, or they have a voice and they can be heard. And I think that that is probably the most important thing to people, even people we haven't heard from, but people who we know are out there. I
Yeah.
think that's probably the most important thing for people, that they have a say,
So I
when they
think-
want to have a say.
So that I think also means we have to really consider what the participation route's gonna be for people. You know, so if we take away their voice at town meeting, and I've seen a lot of things in the different charters where, you know, some have been better than others, but where, you know, we really are enable people to have that voice and have that participation. Or maybe even better than they do now, because right now, if I can't make it to town meeting, I have no voice. And even if I make it there, I'm one out of, 120. They could all be 100 people from a certain neighborhood that are all, completely opposed, and there's nothing I can say that night that's gonna change their mind. So I think that's the open town meeting, the representative town meeting. I think it goes back to what you had said, David, about if you have a very actively engaged, population, politically involved, then people running and people wanting to be involved and wanting to represent their town, I think it can work, but I just don't see that. That's why we have to think about what works for Norton versus.
I think the way too, like, if you're somebody who likes open town meeting, and you want to keep it the same way, I think your initial reaction is, well, there's nothing wrong with the way it is. So there's no problem, so there's no need to fix the problem, so I vote no on the charter. And that's a simple solution to you wanting to keep the way it is. Maybe you go to every town meeting, maybe you watch every meeting at home, maybe you come to every meeting. You know, and if for you, it's perfect. You like it, you like to go there, you like to. I think we've moved beyond that. And you're gonna have those people, absolutely. There's people in town right now that have said it with voting no on this, and they've come in here and they've said they wanna keep open town meeting, they like it the way it is. But I think for 20,000 people that live in this town, the way to represent them moving forward is we have to move away from open town meeting. It's the only thing that's going to help. And like I said, is it going to be perfect? Of course not. 20,000 people aren't gonna come in and say, oh, this is the best idea ever. It's just not going to happen. But I look back, and I did some of what David did too. I've lived here my entire life. I've looked back at some of the decisions we've made in town meeting. And to the point where some of these decisions have been made 3, 4, 5 years later, that decision may have come back to bite us. We've made the wrong decision, and I get it, hindsight's 20/20. And there are people that come up to you and say, why did we do that? Well, we did it in town meeting. What are you talking about? I have no idea we did that. Because either one, they're not informed, two, they have no idea that we take type of votes like that in town meeting. Like, I think that's a problem, you know what I mean? And I think we've also made decisions in town meeting that only a few short months we've realized may need to be changed or may need to be updated. Now we're calling another special town meeting, or we're trying to have a vote or an elect. I think it's so inefficient. And to me, if you want to recognize that there's a problem, that's fine. I agree with you. I think the problem is with open town meeting and the way it's run in 2019 for a town this size and for how much stuff we have going on and the future of growth we have in this town. I think it does not work for us. So to me, the problem is it doesn't work. So how do you fix it? So if you're getting rid of open town meetings, I do not believe that there are enough things that we can tweak in open town meeting to make it work for town. So to me, that's why I eliminated open town meeting. So the next step is RTM. I believe that I come to the same conclusion when I look at RTM, is I'm going back to that same thing, is that we're going to be in the same boat we're in. You might have that good participation for the first maybe few years when people are like, oh, this is great, it's something new. And then it's gonna be back to the same special interest thing, where 140 people, 160 people are saying, well, I have a big project coming up on my side of town, let's get on the RTM so we can sway the vote, that we don't have to, that's not a fair representation of town. And I know a lot of people don't wanna hear that, but that's just the way it is. And there's gonna be more projects, there's gonna be more things coming down the line for Norton that I think should be represented by what's good for 20,000 people, what's the best decision financially for Norton, what puts us one step ahead of the next town that somebody wants to come move here. And that, to me, town council is the only way to look at it from a broad perspective and say, look, I know this isn't gonna make somebody on this street unhappy, but unfortunately, this is what's best for the town.
What I found interesting too about the people who they were clearly saying they like town meeting. It was always, well, but there's some issues. Can you fix those issues? And that's kind of goes back to what I think when Bill came and was kind of saying that it would be great if we could fix the issue of special interest groups. It would be great if we could somehow fix some of the other problems with it, but those problems are sort of inherent with that system, right? And it's not, without changing this whole system, you really can't fix those issues. So I think, everyone acknowledges the issues, it just, that idea of you have a voice, no one's taking away my vote, no one's taking away my voice, is kind of the recurring theme I hear.
Which is like you said, you just need to make sure we build a mechanism.
Right.
When you think about the other parts of it, right?
Right.
And there are ways to do that, which we've seen in some of these charters.
So we have met for 46 hours and 19 minutes, not including this meeting tonight, and we've heard from
Thanks.
just under 100 people here in our meeting, and including those people that have responded via the survey. And nobody has been able to present in my opinion, a valid enough argument for maintaining a town meeting form of government, whether open or RTM. I just don't feel either forms of those government respond to the needs of this town as it stands right now.
And I always go back to the same saying, and I know it's used in businesses, and I know this can't be run as a business, but I love when you ask somebody, well, why do you do it that way? And the first person says, well, it's because we've always done it that way. I think that to me should be an immediate reaction to say, that needs to be changed then. Because if there is a problem and you're saying, well, why do you do it that way if there's a problem? That's what we've always done it. That's an issue, and I think in town, we're hearing that over, and I'm not saying in those direct words, I'm not saying verbatim, but that's exactly, well, why do you do the budget that way? I don't know, it's always been done that way. Well, why this date? I don't know, that's what it says in the thing. So, why is that date even in there when you're not even following the date? Like, who's responsible for this? And, people are throwing their hands up. I know it's not their fault, I'm not blaming them, it's just the way things have gotten to time, because you have to prepare for this one town meeting, or a special town meeting, to try to cram everything in all in one night, that people are trying to get home for the, Patriots game for, it's just, I think there's too much money, there's way too much of a budget for town now, there's way too much going on. We're no longer, a $10 million budget with having 500 people show up at a town meeting, being able to run the town and it working. We're beyond that. I mean, what are we, $56 million? I mean, it's some serious money and some serious taxes, and I think it's just gonna keep, there's a lot of things coming up in town that we need constant vigilance on, not 2 meetings a year, or 3 if we have a special town meeting. I go back to something like, I look at something like this industrial park. I mean, there's no kidding. I was a big proponent of that industrial park, because I think it's the future of Norton. It was I think one of the only ways to get tax money in that we desperately needed. But the way I look at that was, it was nerve-wracking, because literally, if you had the people from, and I get it, there are people down there that are affected by it, and I totally understand where they're coming from. But if they had enough people to show up, they potentially could have swayed that to be not there. That would have affected 20,000 other people. I mean, I personally do not think that's fair. That's not good for 20,000 people. There's probably 17,000 people that industrial park is good for.
We could be earning billboard revenue right now.
There's a lot of things. I mean, this goes back, but I think the town meeting has made decisions like this for years. I mean, I can name several of them that in my lifetime that we've done, and then afterwards we go, why did we do that? Well, I'll tell you why we did that, because it happened on such and such a road, and 150 of those people showed up, and I understand it. It's in their backyard. They don't want it. They like their piece of property, and they don't want it to be changed. I totally understand. I live in town too. But if you look at it, the broader picture, does it meet the requirements of planning and zoning? Yes. Okay, then why are 150 people deciding that shouldn't be going on in town when there's 20,000 people that could benefit? And I think open town meeting continually, and if it doesn't happen tomorrow, it's going to happen in town meetings where projects like that benefit 20,000 people continue to get shut down. And I think there's other things too, like with, when people come up here and say, well, Norton's never opened a business. I think, is Norton kicking business out? Of course not. But I think the way our government's set up right now, there's so many things that they have to jump through hoops to be able to do things. I think that streamlining the government and getting a process in on how people can come in here and interact with the town government goes back to that exact thing, on streamlining it. It's not that Norton's saying no to business. It's that the process is so tedious, and there's so much red tape, and there's so many things of, well, who do I talk to next? And there's finger pointing to go here, by nobody's fault, because it's been so convoluted. Where I think the town council, can, with the right setup, can streamline those things so people go, I know what I need to do if I come in here and want to take a builder permit, if I want to go through planning, if I want to go through, licensing or whatever I need to do. I just think town council can, with the right setup and the right direction, can solve, not everything, of course not, but it can just solve so many more of the issues that we see in the survey, that we see people coming in here and speaking about. It can at least address some of those things, and even if it needs to be tweaked down the road, it can be tweaked through the charter, through small things.
So Dave, what other information, I guess, would you?
So I'm not in
need
disagreement, just.
Okay. I'm just wondering
to be
if there's
clear.
other information that you are looking for that.
No, I just want, I always get nervous when it's like, yes, and I want, and the feedback is all consistent, and there's always a fear in the back of my mind of what are we missing? And so that's why I wanted to pose the question of, well, what's somebody, and if really the answer that someone's gonna say is, I don't wanna lose my ability to be part of it, I don't wanna lose my ability to influence, I don't wanna lose my voice, then to your point, we darn well need to make sure that that voice remains in whatever the structure winds up being. My second question is on the pragmatic side. This is not something that we get to change. This is something that we get to put forth to the voters. Is this a change that we think the voters would pass? Because if we put forth something that is, quote, too radical, or whatever terminology would be used by people who don't want to do it, and the whole thing fails, are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
I think if you had 20,000 voters, I think it would pass, but we won't get 20,000 voters.
Yeah.
So it depends on who shows up on voting day.
Sure.
I think a
think-
couple things. I think one, the fact that we were able to get the signatures and,
Yeah.
and that, you know, we kind of got a good gauge when we were kind of hitting the streets and talking to people, and people clearly weren't fans of open town meeting. And I think that they really did, a lot of people, like Renee, didn't have a specific alternative, right? They wanted to, they kind of said, well, let's hear the rationale, or what the other options are. So I don't know that those people would not care, but I think we could easily, you know, explain why we chose this over RTM. But I think, you know, that was kind of the big resounding piece that we, even at the polls, people knew when we jumped into this, that's what they were voting for us to look into the government. Because realistically, that's the only reason you need a commission versus a committee.
Yeah.
I also think that we need to think about the fact that the only thing this commission can do that a committee can't do is change the government. So I feel like that's something that, kind of going back to Kevin's point, right? If we don't even look at that, it doesn't matter what other changes we make. Those other changes we can make anytime.
Yeah.
Right? This is the only one that can only be made now. So I would personally say, go for it, go for the change, because this is what we, you know, are working for. And then I would say that's a great question, though, for every decision that we make, right? We want to make sure that now this is a package sells.
Yep.
And it's something that people are in favor of.
I will add on that I wasn't expecting this in the least. I'm taking comfort personally in the fact that a very diverse group of people all heard the same thing, read the same thing, listened to the same people, and reached the same conclusion. So that is comforting to me. And I think when it comes down to the time when we have to go out and do public outreach and selling this, I think the fact that we at least appear to be unanimous in our decision, and people would need to take comfort in the fact that, yes, we've actually done the work. We've done what we were supposed to do, and this is the recommendation. And if they can trust in, you know, the people that elected us, or the people they elected to do this process, then I think we can sell it. I think the rationale that we just gave over the past hour, you know, is, you know, we could summarize and put that into a very nice PowerPoint presentation and defend our position very
Yeah.
easily, I think. I think that was,
And personally, I think that, and again, this is totally me, and I understand this, and I by no means want to speak for everybody else, but when it comes down to it, I totally understand that there's a package. I understand that whatever we give them, we have to understand that it's going to be voted on. We want to try to take in all the considerations and all the factors that people are in town that are looking at in these surveys and putting things, and try to give them as much representation as possible. But me personally, I don't want this to fail, but I also do not want to put something out that I know is not changing Norton for the better, because it sells. You know what I mean? I'm not giving, it's like somebody making a product for business, you know? I'm not willing to put my name on something that is not good for the town. And personally, I believe that this is the best thing for the town. And if we come up with a plan and it fails, at least I know, in my opinion, that it was the right thing to do. Whether the town agrees with it or not is different, but to put something else, just say, well, we really wanted to do this, but we thought this would sell, and we're in the same boat we're in,
Right.
you know, April of 2019, when we got elected, we're really in the same boat. We tweaked 10 things that we could have tweaked in a normal thing. Well, I'm not okay with that, you know what I mean? I feel like we've invested way too much time. There's way too many people here that are doing what they're supposed to do. You know, at some point, you just gotta say, this is what's good. And I think, like you said, a strong, you know, public presence and a very smart people here that can explain different aspects of whatever we choose to do down the road. You know, see, I'd rather see what my chances take, because I know it'd be a better thing for the town than what we have right now.
yeah, and a united front is fairly compelling.
100%.
I think it would have a lot of support.
I hope so. I think so. I hope so.
And all we can really ask is the people that don't want is to have an open mind. We understand there's people that do not want to switch from open town meeting. We totally understand that. But what we would ask is that they would have an open mind and at least listen to where we're coming from and why we came to the decisions we did. It's not like we just all of a sudden said to town meeting, we don't want it anymore. We went through a process. We heard the people we heard. And if we can explain them in a bullet point or a PowerPoint and at least hear us out and understand why we did this. We're not looking at it from, one perspective. We're looking at it from multiple perspectives, and we think that this might be the best thing for the town. Maybe some people will hear us out that don't want it and say, okay, at least, I'm not gonna vote for it because I wanna keep it, but I at least understand where you're coming from. There's nothing really more you can ask from that.
I think it's no different than any other kind of political vote, right? There's gonna be that segment that you're not going to convince to change, and you're gonna get
100%.
no's, that it just is what it is, right? So you have to work on the ones that, are unsure.
Yeah.
Or that you can
Sway.
sway, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, I know myself, and I think we all did, I think we all came in here pretty open-minded. And I think anybody who goes back and.
I thought we were gonna wind up with RTM.
I did too, honestly.
That's what I came into it
Yeah, I
originally,
agree with you
yeah.
100%. That's kind of where I thought we might go, because it just seemed.
Then when I saw numbers, I was
Intuitively
like,
logical,
ooh,
that's what
200 and
we end up.
something people,
And, so I think we all came in here pretty open-minded about it all. I don't think any of us
No.
necessarily knew what the end game was. And, or you might have had a thought, but you really weren't sure.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who watches all the meetings and all, and God bless them if they do, but they,
They have a hobby.
Some of them were riveting.
some of them were riveting. There were a few riveting ones, but but I really do think they would take away from that we really did, we looked at this open-minded, from an open-minded perspective and developed it over time, our opinion. I know I left here many nights thinking like, I heard Bob Kimball make his pitch and said, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get what he's saying. And, and thought about it, and, by the end of the week, I was like, I get it, but I still don't agree with that, but, so, and I think we all did that, we all thought about what they said. So, at the end, I'm very comfortable where we seem to be heading with a decision here. And I think people in town will realize that there's been a lot of thought put into this, and I think they'll feel comfortable that we're making the right decision.
Yeah, and I think, our next steps in putting together a recommendation that takes into account, takes into account their feelings and make sure that they have representation and mechanisms to participate is key.
Absolutely, because you can definitely set the town council to be very, almost impossible to overrule, or in how you elect them and how you can recall them and those kind of things. So, and I'm getting too far ahead. I think there's definitely ways to soften the blow, if you will.
Yeah.
And, my personal opinion is we'll probably soften the blow, and then over time, 10 years from now, someone will say, why the hell did they do that? but
Tighten
I
it
think
up a
that's be a
bit.
natural step.
Yeah,
But
well, and then, that will respond to the needs of the town at that
at that
point.
time,
Yes.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to caution ourselves too, that nothing that we put forward is gonna be perfect, it's not gonna solve everything.
No.
But all these issues, we've all come to the same conclusion that this is the best way to, deal with all these issues. And you are gonna, to speak to your point, we are gonna get that faction of people who are just gonna say no, and they're gonna say no tonight, right? They're gonna that's their vote, and when it's time to vote, they're gonna vote no. So we are gonna deal with that faction of people. But I do think that putting forth what we all think is the best way to deal with the issues that we've heard and talked about is the most important thing. And then, step 2 is obviously getting out there, like you said, and having that public push.
Doing the outreach.
Yeah.
I think it's too, I think it's just very important for us as we're speaking about this and wherever we go with it is we need to make sure we understand, but also for the voters to understand that when we talk about a certain thing, we're talking about positions. Like, I think sometimes people get like cornered, well, it's the person, it's this. Well, this is, if this, something like this changes, this may be well in effect for well past when we're all here, so it's, who knows who's gonna be in that position, who knows how the town decides to go with that route, so, you can't think of it as, well, 2019, what's it gonna look like? Yeah, you can see it, you can see the first, while of it, but in 10 years, what is the most efficient for the town? Well, the most efficient for the town is to have town council this way, whatever we decide. That's how we have to, make sure we look at it, as well as showing the people from town. It's the position and how they interact with each other, not the bodies.
I think there's also even an education element. I'll relay a story that happened just last week. and was speaking with a person who sits on multiple boards in this town, and was asking, do we have an idea of which way we're going? And I said, no, we're coming up for a discussion on that. And, the response was, well, we got to go to RTM first, like, that's the next logical step. And, so I made some of the same points that I did here tonight, and this person was stunned that RTM only met twice a year. They didn't understand the fact that the representative town meeting didn't meet any more frequently than open town meeting. And that was sort of eye-opening to both of us. One, that they didn't, having sat here for 46 hours and read everything, I understand how the process works, but, folks on the other side of the table may not necessarily know that's why that is not an advantage of RTM, is not an advantage over town council if we're looking for, the ability to be nimble and efficient. So that was shocking to me. I said, how often do you think they meet? And they said, I just assumed as often as the Board of Selectmen. I said, no. Nope. No.
I think RTM to me is just open town meeting with a fancy election thrown in for 140 people. I mean,
Yeah, I think the only thing that RTM solves is the people that can't make it because they have work schedules, whatever. Like, you can go voice your opinion to those people, and they're gonna hopefully represent you, but
Yeah,
You get more-
that's the only thing it solves.
Yeah.
You probably have a more educated.
slightly. But I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of
But if you get
how often are they
140
going to be
or
getting
100
their information? And
Exactly. You're still in the, you're still meeting twice a thing, maybe a special town meeting here and there. And then you're asking the selectmen and the town manager to do the exact same thing we do right now and throw it on the laps of 140 or 180 or 200 people to vote on it with a fancy election that,
Yeah, if they're still getting information like the day before.
yeah, it's
You know,
useless.
Poop in, poop out.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in favor, that would be
Yeah.
counter argument.
Yeah.
I had a similar conversation with someone, again, pretty involved, and they said, I think you should go to RTM. And I said, oh, really? You think we can get like 200, 100 some odd people? That's not how many you need. And then I started describing it, and then describing town council. Oh, I want the town council thing. That's what I meant. So now I'm
Terminology,
like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's not only an outreach, there's an education aspect, and I think we have to go at it from the position that, look, again, just let's assume nobody knows anything.
Here's the 3 different types. the
Yes, and
differences, yeah.
show them literally how we got there and why
Yeah,
we got there.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, totally agree.
I don't have any more questions.
I have
Would you
a great, I don't think I ever shared it with everybody, because I kind of wanted to keep it, I didn't want, to be influencing or whatever. But there's, I think, Westboro, I think I shared it with you. A Westboro town manager who wrote this big analysis of the 3 forms. Kind of basically
Oh, is that
saying all
that
the same
300-page?
Oh, yeah, it's insanely huge. But he
Yeah.
also, if you just read the summary,
My page is
there's a couple
300.
piece of it as a summary.
It had a lot of like exhibits and things in it, but yeah, it was hefty.
Wow.
So that had
Impressive.
sort of a summary of
I've
it.
done a lot of reading.
Dissertation.
Yeah. And he pulled in everything else that is, like, when I would Google things, I would see all these other things. He pulled all those things into.
So he did it because Westboro was considering a change as well?
I think his board of selectmen, I forget, he
Yeah.
wrote why he started it. Someone asked him to
It was a
do some research on the board. of
research
selectmen.
committee.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
To me, like, I agree with Jane too, like going back to, I know we met with a lot of people, I know we, yeah, it's like that MMA meeting with the 2 town managers, to me, was one of the most influential things for me personally, for my decision, just because of the information that was presented to us. We had such a great, equal thing of coming from an open town meeting to a, representative town meeting, or keep staying in the old town, and then a town manager who went from open town meeting to town council, and when I asked him that, I think like that's when I had my thing, when I said, well, would you go back, if his job didn't exist anymore, would you go back to open town? No, absolutely not. And I'm like, okay, that to me is an understanding of, if you are a town manager, if you are seeking out a town to work for, that must be going on, because it's happening more and more of somebody saying, I don't want to go back to open town meeting. I'd like to have this, I'd like to have the authority to appoint the people that I want in there. But there's also accountability, you know, that he has accountability to his town council.
Well, and I'm sure from a town manager perspective, it's easier to present articles in front of a board of people who are much more informed
Absolutely.
on the issues than it is to present in front of, you know, a bunch of people who are uninformed and trying to kind of start from scratch and explaining how they got what they are and what they're changing, and sometimes we'd even get that and people still vote, but.
Do you feel comfortable expressing your opinion?
I do. So I am, I think, aligned with everybody here in favor of the town council format. And I wasn't trying to be coy earlier.
No, no.
I always want to start with that what is the problem that we're trying to solve?
Yes.
Then let's work.
Yeah, I
towards
think,
that.
I think we're all on the same page, we just got there a little
Yep.
differently.
Yeah.
I still can't believe we're,
I'm not surprised by.
I am.
By the overarching question. I
Yeah.
think we'll have much more
Yeah.
discussion for all the.
oh, there'll be some fighting.
I wouldn't say fighting, I was gonna say
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay.
I
I am pleasantly surprised.
I think it's a promising thing that, you know, there's 9 of us here that one way or the other came to a certain thing. Like, I see that as a promising thing where I think we've got 9, hopefully very smart people up here that say, this is what's best for town. You know what I mean? That's a promising thing, and at least a unified front looks, to me,
Yeah.
you know, to me, it would be much more, you know, nerve-wracking or misunderstanding if we have a total split or 3 that want to stay open town meeting, and, you know, you had this and we're going back and forth on this. I think we realize what the issues are, and we realize that some of these issues can be solved by going to town council.
Agreed. Okay. So we have quite a bit of work ahead of us. Started to put together a list of more of the key decisions that need to be made. If you want to take one and pass them along. Few of which we've discussed tonight, as you can see. But these are things we are going to have to tackle in probably the next 2 to 3 months, maybe even sooner. So I wanted to pass this around. Like I said, this is kind of a bullet point of some of the key things that we're going to have to tackle relative, and probably in sort of this order to some extent. So I wanted to pass this around to have everybody take a look at it and see if there was anything in particular that was missing. And again, you can look at it now. You can get back to me if you think there are pieces that, or areas that we need to also address in here. What I'm going to try and do is come up with a timeline in which to get these addressed. Going forward on the agenda, I'll probably load it a little more heavily, similar to kind of what FinCom does, where they'll put a bunch of things on there. They may get to some of them, they may not, they may be pushed off or tabled to another meeting. I'd rather have us have too much on the agendas than not enough, and we can't talk about it because it wasn't posted on the agenda. So I think it's important, I think the most important thing is the next meeting on the 13th, if everybody is available. I think we should vote specifically on the legislative and executive branches. We should probably then get into the discussion of how many members will that town council hold, the terms of those members. Thinking also about, I'm assuming, are we all in favor of a town manager versus a mayor?
Yes.
And were we all in favor of the opinion that a strong town manager is better than a weak?
I'm uncertain on that.
Okay.
I'm more middle manager.
Okay.
Average.
Yes, an average Joe.
I guess compared to what we have now, would you want to see stronger, weaker? Kind of my favorite good baseline, you know. So right now, we have a pretty strong town manager.
I certainly wouldn't want to see it stronger. I would say the same. Maybe, I don't know, yeah, I don't know, I have to think about it a little bit more.
Okay.
And part of that, and maybe this is just a different way to say the same thing, but part of that might be the accountability mechanisms back to the town, because I think it was Renee, right, just the last meeting was talking about that mechanism, I guess, for holding that accountable within the level of strength that they have.
Yeah, and trying to understand what does it mean when we say strong versus weak specifically, right? What does that mean, that they're able to make decisions independently without coming to the town council? Does it just mean about reporting structure? Like specifically, what are the implications of saying strong versus weak?
Well, I think we saw those like with town administrators where they just really didn't have a whole lot of power at all, right? Where
Yeah, I don't think
where
I want
selectmen
weak.
was hiring people and as opposed to town manager, hiring
Yeah.
and then board of selectmen approving.
I
Right.
think from a point of, if we were looking to bring in a new town manager, I think that's one of the things that they would look at, and I think a strong town manager is going to attract more applicants than a weak one. And I understand we have, one already, but at some point,
I agree.
if and when he decides to retire, then
Yeah, I guess I would probably say.
we have to bank for the future.
I'd probably say
plan for the future.
strong, but I'm more interested in defining what that means underneath it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one way to do that too is if we, now that we can kind of at least narrow down to town council, I think we can be looking at the charters we've seen and adding hopefully some more to them where those things are outlined, so we can get an idea of how other people do it. Not that I want to copy another town, but it at least gives us some ideas on how we want to structure the position of town manager.
Yeah, I think that's where some of the benefit of having read all of the other charters comes in. I would recommend going back through those, probably with a focus on town council, unless there was something in particular within the RTM charter that you read that you may want to consider adopting, but try and cull out what we felt were some of the better.
So just in terms of prepping for the next meeting, the highlighted items are the items that were.
No, those are the ones we've kind of I was thinking we would attempt to discuss tonight.
Okay.
We didn't really get into the number or the term, so be prepared to discuss that. Be prepared to vote. And I think we'll probably have to get into the discussion of the next probably 3 to 4 to 5 bullet items under the legislative section in terms of how are the town council members going to be elected? Do we want them to have staggered terms? How is that president going to be chosen? What the role of the president is going to be? If we want to discuss term limits. If we could also, and I think in some cases we're going to have to work in conjunction, as opposed to taking these in order, I think in the effort of time, we'll probably have to take a couple of these at once. We may want to start having the conversation about whether we want to move to a DPW. And, if we do, what do we want that to look like? Do we still have a commission? Things of that nature. We should probably approach that one first and then move on to whether we want to maintain a finance or advisory committee going forward as well. So these are kind of start thinking about these. Be prepared to have discussions on the questions up through term limits under the legislative. But start thinking about FinCom, start thinking about water and sewer. And at some point, probably not far thereafter, we'll have to have conversations about citizen participation mechanisms. And to that end, there was a very nice guide that explained what all of them are and some things to take into account when enacting them, which could be helpful if you wanted to read them as well. And then there was one other piece piece, and it was kind of a framework for considering how to determine whether we want a board or a committee or commission appointed versus elected. And there were some nice guidelines there as well. So as I find useful information from other areas, i.e. other towns that have already been through this, I've kind of been squirreling them away for this specific purpose.
Oh, sorry.
Just because I think there's some additional information there that's helpful. So,
Oh, excuse me.
action items, if you could review the list of decisions. If you find there's something that I'm missing, please let me know and just send an email. Don't wait until the next meeting. I'll probably meet with Kevin and Sandy and try to come up with a timeline for addressing these. It'll try and be logical, but we may wind up jumping around quite a bit. And like I said, I'll put multiple things on the agenda so that we have the freedom to kind of address anything that we need to going forward. What else did I have? All right. Oh, one of the things, so I'll put the timeline together based on the decisions that we need to make. I will also engage Lauren Goldberg and find out how she would like us to proceed vis-a-vis her involvement, whether, she wants to get it piecemeal, whether she wants to come and meet with us and have another discussion. I think that might be helpful at some point, once we've narrowed down a few more decisions.
And what is it she's expecting from us? In other words,
I'm not sure.
A bullet point
Yeah.
list of what we want, and then she puts the verbiage in?
Yeah, so when I went back and reviewed the first meeting that we ever had with her, and one of the things that she had said was, you don't need to give me a fully baked or even a fully written out. You don't have to do it yourself, just tell me what you're thinking and I can guide you.
Okay.
So one of the questions is, one of the questions we have is whether she's got a recommended template for a charter. The one that we have doesn't seem to align with some of the charters that she's worked on specifically, so she may have, they all tend to run the same articles, so it hits there's a preamble, there's the legislative branch, the executive branch, finance, all of the articles, even the ones that she hasn't written, all tend to run in the same relative order and accomplish the same thing, kind of ending with the transition procedures. But it would be helpful to know if she's got a good working template that we can consider, and whether that template has other questions that we need to consider within it. So,
Can we send her this sheet once everybody has input and say, are we missing anything critical?
yeah, that's a great idea. And kind of get her idea of how she wants the process to work, because we have to take into account this isn't her only job. It's, it's important to us, but, it may not be very, very high on her priority list, and we need to make sure that we are giving her adequate time to get it accomplished so that we have a draft ready and prepared to submit to the town and to the Attorney General in the time frame that we are required to. That being said, if we start going through like I said, we're going to try and put dates with some of these decisions that we want to have made. If we are not getting to everything within the meeting and we're starting to slip significantly, I just want to prep people that we may need to schedule additional meetings in order to accomplish everything in the timeline that we have to. So we will try to avoid it at all costs, but it may be outside of our control, especially if there are things that, we wind up having considerable deliberation on that we are expecting to be a quick and easy decision. So just keep that in mind. And that was it. So we'll have a vote next meeting. If you know you're going to be out, just let me know. If you could do your best to try it. It looks like everybody is scheduled to be there at the next meeting. And I think that's important that we vote at least on that one thing and everybody is here. And that's it. that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything they want to discuss this evening? Yes.
Can we maybe at some point too, it doesn't have to be tonight, but talk about what our next step is with the public? Maybe a public hearing, like when do we want to
Start doing
start
outreach?
doing outreach? I mean, do we want to start doing it early? Do we want to wait? Do we want to reach out to people? We haven't had a public hearing since May, was it May, June, I forget.
June.
But do we want to start doing those things, and how do we want to start doing them, and what will they look like?
Yeah. That's great. I think once we've, we're all sort of on the same page, once we have a better idea of what more in depth that's going to look like, it may not be a bad idea to just hold a public hearing and see. I don't want to call it a hearing, because hearing requires a posting within the newspaper, and this would be more like an info session
Info session.
for the public, and allow them to ask questions. We can see what kind of attendance we get. Hopefully it would be good, and go from there, I think but we can talk about it a little bit more once we've made some key decisions. And we know what it's going to look like a little bit more, because I think I'd hate to show up and, we know what the form of government's going to look like, but in terms of all of the other stuff, I think it's better if we have more of those answers rather than not. So, but that's my opinion.
I agree.
I agree, it might frustrate them more if they have a lot of questions that we can't answer.
Yeah.
Everything we say is,
Right.
we're not sure yet.
And
Yeah.
just for the record, the public is, even though we have made this decision, the public is still welcome to contact us with any questions, comments, opinions that they have. They are welcome to attend any meeting, and we will still allow public comment on every agenda. So if at some point somebody has an issue with a decision that we've made, they're free to come in at any time, address us here personally, or send us an email through the webpage Charter Commission address.
Maybe we can talk, next meeting about, just to your point, if people don't even know what we're voting on, they may not think to come in.
Yep.
So,
Maybe even a Government 101, maybe have Bill do another one of those for us?
I'm just thinking of kind of alerting people to the fact that we're starting to vote. That maybe when we started to make a couple decisions, that we've made those decisions. I don't know what that looks like at all, but I'm wondering if putting that out there.
Like on the same social media channels you did before, like the TV,
Again, I'm just kind of open to it, but I feel like that people wouldn't know to come in.
what stage we're at, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they don't know that we've already made decisions, what those decisions look like. So maybe that kind of thing we can talk about next time, too.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions or anything else they want to talk about specifically tonight? Okay. We know what our marching orders are with regards to action items. If you could please review this sooner rather than later. And if you have any additions, comments, changes, get back to me. At some point, we'll have to get together and put a brief timeline together, and in the next meeting, we'll discuss public outreach, what it's going to look like, info session, when we should start, and then talk about communicating and how we go about that as well. And that's it. Anything else? Everybody good?
Good.
All right. If there's no other issues, so our next meeting is January 13th, 2020. We reviewed that. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are unanimous.